President Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un held a summit in Pyongyang. It feels like the axis of evil has met. Let's examine this today. Let's begin. On June 9th, President Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un held a summit in Pyongyang. A Korean Central News Agency report said the two parties and countries agreed to boost strategic communication with high-level exchanges, expand cooperation in politics, economy and culture, and start a new phase in China-North Korea relations. Here it is said that the leaders of the two countries also agreed to hold a joint commemorative event on the occasion of the 65th anniversary of the signing of the North Korea-China Friendship and Cooperation Treaty in April. It has been 7 years since President Xi Jinping visited North Korea. President Xi Jinping's visit to North Korea began on June 8. When his plane landed at Pyongyang Sunan International Airport, Kim Jong-un and Ri Sol-ju welcomed President Xi Jinping with applause and bright smiles. Kim Jong-un personally greeted him at the airport, extending the highest level of protocol. Let's review what Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un agreed on during this visit. North Korea and China's relationship is strengthening. President Xi Jinping said that this visit would serve as an opportunity to strengthen the top-level design and strategic guidance for a new era in North Korea-China relations. He stated that the relationship between North Korea and China will develop with the times and bring greater benefits not only to both countries but also to their peoples. He stressed that China and North Korea, both socialist nations led by the Communist Party, share a traditional friendship based on common ideals and goals. He noted this relationship has deep historical roots, a strong political base, and close emotional ties. President Xi Jinping personally introduced concrete steps to further strengthen China-North Korea relations. President Xi Jinping stressed that high-level exchanges should be increased to boost political trust. He suggests both countries' leaders meet more often and communicate closely to share strategic goals and policies. He also said exchanges on party and state governance should grow, and learning in different fields should deepen. This shows that its relationship with China could advance from diplomacy to sharing governance and development strategies. Specific steps to boost economic and industrial cooperation were also presented. President Xi Jinping said cooperation in economy, trade, agriculture, construction, science, technology, and healthcare should be expanded to benefit both countries' people. He notably mentioned fully reopening border trade ports and resuming civil aviation flights and international passenger trains. As people and goods move more, economic cooperation between the two countries can also grow. For China, it could boost the northeastern economy, while for North Korea, it may help secure foreign currency and aid economic recovery. President Xi Jinping proposed 4 development plans, including continuing traditional friendship and boosting strategic cooperation. Kim Jong-un pledged to fully implement them. In particular, by publicly expressing support for the One China principle, he showed his backing for the core issue that China is most sensitive about. This scene symbolizes the growing closeness between North Korea and China, which is understandably concerning for South Korea. However, South Korea's main adversary remains North Korea. North Korea has recently been strengthening its cooperation with Russia, and now its relationship with China is also recovering rapidly. Naturally, this is something South Korea can't help but be concerned about. In other words, North Korea is showing signs of breaking out of diplomatic isolation and expanding its relations with major friendly countries. In particular, China is North Korea's largest trading partner and the most influential country for North Korea. Therefore, if North Korea-China cooperation expands across the fields of economy, diplomacy, and security, there is a significant possibility that the situation on the Korean Peninsula will also undergo considerable changes. The types of cooperative projects North Korea and China pursue and how quickly they develop their relationship are becoming key factors shaping Northeast Asia. These changes are also a very sensitive issue for China. Until now, North Korea's economic dependence on China has been absolute, even amid international support. North Korea conducts most of its trade through China and depends on China for crude oil, food, and necessities. This reliance allows China to maintain influence over North Korea. After the war in Ukraine, North Korea obtained significant foreign currency and resources through military cooperation with Russia, reducing its dependence on China. For China, the ideal is for North Korea to stay in its sphere of influence while remaining somewhat controlled. With Russia emerging as a new patron, North Korea now has more diplomatic options. Some analysts believe China's recent push to restore ties with North Korea is driven by strategic calculations. In fact, President Xi Jinping mentioned expanding exchanges not only in the fields of economy and trade, but also in military and security during this summit. His emphasis on strengthening high-level exchanges and expanding strategic cooperation can be seen in the same context. This suggests an effort to keep North Korea from aligning too closely with Russia and to help China maintain its influence on Korean Peninsula affairs. South Korea faces a more complex situation as North Korea gains practical experience from Russia and boosts economic ties with China. On one side, they are securing massive funds through a wartime windfall, while on the other side, they are trying to secure economic breathing room. If this trend continues, North Korea will be able to invest more resources not only in developing nuclear weapons and missiles, but also in expanding its conventional military power. In fact, analysts say the reason North Korea has recently emphasized the development of drones, artificial intelligence, electronic warfare systems, and reconnaissance assets is because of this. In particular, the war in Ukraine is providing the North Korean military with an unexpected opportunity. In the past, the North Korean military had large troop numbers, but it was evaluated as having virtually no experience in modern warfare. However, troops at the Russian front are directly experiencing drone operations, electronic warfare, precision strikes, and modern artillery tactics. In modern warfare, victory is not determined solely by the size of the troops as it was in the past. Drones and reconnaissance assets, real-time information sharing capabilities, and electronic warfare capabilities are considered very important factors. North Korea is reportedly studying these warfare aspects and incorporating them into military reforms and weapons development. More concerning, North Korea's secured technology and funds could bolster its military against the South. Recently, North Korea has focused on developing suicide drones and unmanned reconnaissance aircraft. In the Ukraine war, drones costing a few million won have shown they can neutralize tanks and air defense systems worth several billion won. If North Korea combines this technology with mass production, it could pose a new threat to South Korean military facilities and key infrastructure. Currently, North Korea is gaining from the war via Russia and rebuilding ties with China, advancing in the economy, diplomacy, and military sectors. If this trend continues, North Korea could gain a much stronger strategic position and influence beyond the Korean peninsula, potentially changing Northeast Asia's security environment. North Korea's closer ties with Russia and renewed relations with China should be viewed as one trend, not separate events. One of the main reasons China is trying to strengthen its relationship with North Korea is said to be related to gaining access to the East Sea. China has long been interested in developing the Tumen River area. Despite its large northeastern territory and industrial base, China's access to the sea is limited. However, if China is able to use North Korea's ports on the East Sea, such as Rason Port and Cheongjin Port, the situation could change. If Chinese goods can be shipped to the East Sea through North Korean ports, logistics efficiency could be greatly improved. For China, this secures a new maritime logistics route, while North Korea gains port fees and logistics profits. It also helps counter expanding US influence. Currently, the United States is boosting its influence in Northeast Asia by enhancing security ties with South Korea and Japan. For China, keeping North Korea as a stable, friendly ally is crucial. If North Korea becomes unstable or China's influence weakens, the influence of the United States and its allies could expand right up to China's borders. This is one of the scenarios that China is most wary of. To prevent this, China is making moves to strengthen its exchanges with North Korea once again. Also, China can maintain its influence over the situation on the Korean Peninsula through North Korea. The Korean Peninsula issue is directly related to China's security. Therefore, the closer China's relationship with North Korea remains, the more room it secures to actively intervene in various diplomatic and security issues that may arise on the Korean Peninsula in the future. Analysts say this is why the summit focused on boosting high-level exchanges and strategic communication. Therefore, it's hard to view North Korea-China closeness as only benefiting North Korea. North Korea is getting economic and diplomatic support, while China aims to develop its northeast secure maritime routes and counter the United States. Both are pursuing their national interests. As long as these interests align, experts predict North Korea and China will maintain a close relationship for some time. With North Korea acting like this, South Korea should respond accordingly.